Oh dear. Hey guys, and welcome to another edition of Critic Unscripted. I was hoping this day would never come, but yeah, Simple Plan. It's apparently still a thing, and they released a new album with another stupid fucking title, and oh, guys, can you tell already that I'm not the biggest fucking fan of this band? Out of all the bands from that initial pop-punk movement from, like, around the late 90s to the mid-2000s-ish, that sort of era of pop-punk, out of all the bands we got out of that tumultuous time, I could never tell if Simple Plan was exactly the worst, but they were high on my register. And I mean, it's not hard to see why. Simple Plan is a joke. Simple Plan is one of those bands I like to call a regret band. You know, one of those bands that you absolutely dug on as a kid or a teen or what have you. One of those bands from your youth that you absolutely adored then. When you go back and listen to them, however, as a more mature person, you realize, holy shit, what the fuck was wrong with me? We all have them. It's okay. We all had bands like that. Mine was Seether. Sure, they were the shit back in like the early 2000s-ish, mid-2000s-ish, but man, when they dropped off hard. Now, truth be told, the last Simple Plan album I heard was still not getting any, as it was with pretty much everyone else. I mean, these guys were a big victim of the sophomore slump, for good reason. Walking into this album, I didn't have quite the insight as to what they had been doing in the meantime, so when I picked this album up, I figured, okay, you know, maybe they've grown, maybe they've matured, maybe, you know, maybe they could surprise me. I always want to give the band the opportunity to surprise me, because that's a really, really good feeling. I had that feeling when I reviewed Taking Back Sunday's latest. Like, that album was really damn good, and I was not expecting it to be anything at all. Happiness is still an album that I spin from time to time. So I figured, you know, Simple Plan, another band I totally wasn't hot on back in the day. Maybe things have changed. Maybe they've finally gotten an identity, or maybe they've developed their sound, or gotten better at their instruments. Maybe there's something there. And you know what? For the first 4 tracks, there actually kind of was. Yeah. But believe it or not, one thing I noticed and severely appreciated was Pierre Bouvier's vocals. He's not nearly as whiny and preteeny and how could it happen as he was on previous releases. The dude's balls seem to have finally dropped. I wouldn't say he's great by any means, but he's much more tolerable. That was one of the biggest reasons I could never get into Simple Plan. The vocals were so just nasally and whiny, and I'm 23 pretending to be 16 and I have problems! Like no, that's done, that's gone, that's past. Thank God it did, because holy shit, at their ages now, that would be really fucking sad. The same can be said for the rest of the band, too. Everyone's playing fairly well. Again, not stupendous, but I found myself kind of nodding my head to a few tracks, and I was really, really enjoying the initial build-up of this album. Like I said, the first 4 tracks, especially track 4, Farewell, like, I was liking it. Like, there's some nice, like, really fast tempo stuff, some kind of stuff with a more rote, punkish groove to it. There's some stuff with a lot of energy and aggression, and it kind of works. I'm kind of surprised how well this band can pull that off. And given what we know of Simple Plan's previous output, I was not expecting any of this. Simple Plan That's another thing I hated about them. They were so just mid-tempo and mediocre and just would never... They were punk, pop punk technically, but they were a punk band that wouldn't speed the fuck up and give me some punk, you know? I mean, even Blink-182, as pop punky as they were, they still had songs like Rock Show and Damn It, and, you know, Green Day had songs where they would fly off the hinges. Like, I don't know, I've been accused of being an adrenaline junkie in the past and just saying, not fast enough, 2 out of 10, you know, as it is, but, okay, for punk, I should expect that, okay? Unless you're fucking Flipper, you should give me something. You should fly off the rails a little bit. And they actually do on songs like Opinion Overload and Boom. It's weird to see this band with energy and vitality. It makes me think that, you know, maybe there was something there that I just initially didn't see. For Simple Plan standards, it really excels. Like, the lyrics are not terrific by any means, but they don't detract you from the experience. They're not as simpering and dumb and idiot teenagery as they were in the past. But, you know, they're serviceable. Again, considering I don't expect serviceable from Simple Plan, I expect wretched from Simple Plan. I've never been impressed with anything they've done. And, you know, they passed. Bumping up from an F to like a C- isn't exactly what I'd call, you know, exquisite or anything, but, you know, I'll give credit where it's due. Especially Farewell. That song has a cameo from Jordan Pundik on it, which, if you don't know, lead singer from New Found Glory, and New Found Glory is still legit. This album starts out fairly well. Not phenomenal, but it gave me hope. It gave me, you know, like a reason to think this might be better than I initially expected. Then track 5 came along, and oh, buddy, did we get back into bad habits. Wow. Singing in the Rain. Oh my god, what the fuck is this noise? We slow down to this, like, weird, sort of reggae-influenced, laid-back thing? It's sort of a Simple Plan, like, Bruno Mars hybrid. Like, not even like the Bruno Mars we know today, the cool Bruno Mars, the lazy song Bruno Mars, you know, the corny, dorky Bruno Mars. The Bruno Mars that we like to pretend doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, that. It reminded me actually of Magic. Does anyone remember them? Have they already flashed out? They had that one song. I don't even remember what it was. Do you remember what it was? I'm playing the clip back here, but I can't remember what it was. I'll high-five you if you remember what that song was, because I already fucking forgot it. Out of all the styles that Simple Plan would try to fuse with, I can't imagine what possessed them to want to try this. I mean, Our City, the collaborators are working with here, I mean, they do fair enough, but they aren't given much material to work with, so I don't know, I can't really blame them. This song just sucks. Hey, speaking of everything sucks, that song sucks too. How sucky. Okay, up to this point, even with Singing in the Rain, the lyrics haven't actually been half bad. Another thing I hated about Simple Plan, their lyrics were just teeny bopper, pretentious, just pandering to the lowest demographic dumb. But on this album, we didn't see that. The lyrics weren't, you know, they weren't Chaucer or anything, but they were, you know, they were serviceable. They were passable. They didn't distract from the music. Here, it's just all kinds of stupid. To be fair, it's not the stupidest Simple Plan song I've heard. In fact, by normal Simple Plan standards, it's not even the most atrocious thing, but again, given that the album started with such promise, this is a big taper down. Like, this is where the album really starts jutting downhill, and yeah, the song is just dumb. I Refuse turned out to be a decent track. Again, it's a song with some intensity and some pace to it, and it feels like it's appropriately pop punk. It feels like there's a bit of competency there, but then holy crap, I don't want to go to bed. How do I describe this to you if you haven't heard it? It's Simple Plan ripping off Maroon 5. Simple Plan. Heartbreaker. Trying to do this. Nope! Okay, for one thing, if you're going to do like a sexy jam, I Don't Want to Go to Bed is the worst fucking title you can give it. I don't want to go to bed? If you're fucking, you're trying to go to bed. I mean, unless you're trying to just get kinky as fuck and do it on the washing machine or in the bathroom at Denny's, you're trying to go to bed. And also, I don't want to go to bed. That sounds like something, that's not sexy. That's something a grumpy 5-year-old says when he wants to keep watching SpongeBob. I don't want to go to bed, you know? The fuck? And this song features Nelly. Nelly. Like, oh, and he sounds so out of it. Like, he does not want to be on that track. You can just fucking tell. Like, he's barely even speaking. Like, he's almost whispering. He's practically pulling a yin-yang twang. His verses are really limp and dejected sounding, and it's just like, I'm doing a verse on a Simple Plan song. A Simple Plan song. This is what it's come to. I'm working for Simple Plan. Shit. And after that, the album is just really hit or miss. I mean, Perfectly Perfect. Wait. Perfect. No! No, thankfully it's not like that. No, Perfectly Perfect, again, it's like another, it's a slower song, but it's just, its lyrics are really cheeseball, and it's just sappy and dumb. Again, it's really stupid sounding. Like, it sounds almost like a B-side from the Plain White T's, which makes perfect sense because the guy from the Plain White T's wrote it. I Don't Want to Be Sad and P.S. I Hate You are also just kind of mid-tempo and dumb. Like, the lyrics are, again, like, fairly bad. Not the worst I've heard for Simple Plan, again. Like, not unlistenable necessarily, but they're still, like, especially P.S. I Hate You, it's supposed to be kind of a, oh, revenge for, you know, jilted lovers sort of thing, but, you know, Leonard Cohen, this ain't. And the album finishes on kind of a slow front, which, you know, given how awfully this band usually does when they slow down. How could this happen to me? I've made my mistake. Case in point, I was kind of surprised by the closing tracks. Problem Child is fairly decent, you know? It's like, it feels like it could have easily turned into one of those super whiny songs, but, you know, it's not half bad. And I Dream About You has a different vibe going on. Actually, it sounds kind of like they're ripping off Imagine Dragons, sort of, in this song. Like, it has a very slow, deliberate pace, and the drums try to be very powerful. Like, say what you want to about Imagine Dragons, at least they can pull off the beat like nobody's business. Yeah, their drummer so does not have the same capability. But again, it's not bad. Like, it's listenable. It's something I could tolerate if it came on the radio. And you know, that's kind of my general feel about this album. That's my one-word summarization of this. Tolerable. Which is weird because, you know, Simple Plan, they're usually anything but, you know? I mean, I walked into this album expecting a train wreck, and I was surprised to find out that it did have its moments. Hell, it even started fairly strong. Like I said, the first 4 tracks are great. It closes with a couple of decent tracks. I Refuse is a decent track that's kind of wedged in between a lot of shit awkwardly. But that's the thing. Even the stuff that's garbage isn't legendary. Like, Simple Plan are known for their legendary garbage. They're absolute shit. When Simple Plan scrapes for the bottom of the barrel, they scrape past the bottom of the barrel, through the floor, into like the first couple of layers of sediment. Like, when Simple Plan sucks, they suck hard. But on this album, like, I would say it's more misfirey, you know? Really, Simple Plan, as weird as this sounds, this album is at its worst when Simple Plan isn't being Simple Plan. Like, you know, when they're trying to imitate, like, Bruno Mars, or when they're ripping off Imagine Dragons, or when they're doing other stuff to kind of fit in with other cliches as to what's popular in pop music right now, you know, they're worse off for it. Believe it or not, this album actually exceeded my expectations. Like, I'm more impressed with this album than I thought I was going to be. But here's the thing, like, even when this album succeeds, it doesn't knock it out of the park. Like, there isn't one song on here, with the exception of maybe Farewell, and even then, you know, it ain't like Song of the Year material. Even when this album excels, it doesn't, like, truly excel. Even when this album succeeds, it doesn't knock it out of the park. Though, even when this album fails, its failures aren't to the standard high level of Simple Plan failure. It kinda, you know, sort of meets in the middle, you know? It doesn't do well, but it doesn't do horribly either. Like, you know, here's kind of a backhanded compliment to wrap the whole review up. I can easily say this is the best Simple Plan album I've heard. It may be Simple Plan's best album to date, really. It's, you know, it exceeded my expectations. But my expectations were already really low, and it only, like, just exceeded them, you know? Again, this isn't Happiness Is, where I was just blown away by how good it is. It's better than I thought it was gonna be. Simple Plan fans will really get a kick out of this. I think they'll really enjoy it, but that's it. This isn't gonna change anybody's mind about Simple Plan. I mean, I'll give this album credit where it's due, but even the credit it deserves just doesn't do enough to redeem it. And while this is better than most other Simple Plan albums, fucking Prostate Exams are better than most Simple Plan albums. So, this album is marginally better than having someone's finger in your ass. Put that on the cover. Album of the year. Taking one for the team gets 2 for the team out of 5. Again, that's better than 1, but that's still a, you know, you get my point. Thanks again for tuning in to this edition of Rock Critic Unscripted. I'm Crash Thompson, and remember, the only opinion that really matters is your own. Cheers.